Hi guys, welcome on Blue Hammock. Today we are gonna review some Python built-ins data structure. We're gonna review list, which is a particular type of mutable sequence. It is mutable in the sense that its elements can be changed after the list has been defined. So let's start by opening a new notebook. So, how can we define a list? We have different possibilities. One possibility is to use the square bracket notation. So for example, let's say that we want to define an empty list. Let's say A equals square brackets. Let's print A. And we see that we have initialized an empty list. We can do the same with the list constructor. So for example, we can do A equals list. Let's print list. And we see that the result is the same. If we want to initialize the list with some values inside, it's simple as enumerating the elements inside the list. So for example, in this case we have some integers, and we see that now the list A contains 1, 2, 3, so 3 elements. An important fact of Python list is that they can contain heterogeneous data types. So they are not limited to the same data type, but we can put inside different data types. So we could define, for instance, a new list which contains both integers, string, and floats. Another way we have to define a list is using an iterable. If we have an iterable object, for example, let's say that our iterable is range 10, we can define the list using a list comprehension, which is a special construct which is very used in Python. So let's say A equals element for element in iterable. This is a very common scenario where we retrieve information from a database and we receive an iterable and we want to unpack it into a list. Now, how can we operate on a list? So let's start with accessing its elements. To access its elements, we simply have to use the square bracket notation. Let's say we want to access the third element of the list. It is the index number 2, and we print it, and we see that at the third element of the list we have the number 2 and we have retrieved it. With the same notation we can also change the value of an element in the list, because a list is a mutable data structure. So to do this is simple as, let's say we want to assign the number 11. We see that now in the third position we have the number 11 instead of 2. Let's say we want to access multiple elements of the list. To do this we can use the slice notation, which is simple as A, then from index, colon, and index. This way we have sliced the first 3 elements of the list. So remember that the start index is included, the end index is excluded from the slice. In the same fashion we could assign multiple elements. So for example, let's say we want to change the first 2 elements of the list. So we go like this, A, and we assign some new elements. So let's say 99, 98, and let's print A. We see that with the slice notation we have been able to assign multiple values to the first elements of the list. Another common operation is to delete an element from the list. To do this, we can use the del keyword and pass the name of the list and the index of the element we want to delete. So let's say we want to delete the second element, so the index is 1. We see that now the list does not contain the second element, which was 98. Another possibility to delete an element of the list, which has a slightly different behavior, is the pop method. The pop method deletes the element of the list, but also returns the element back to the caller, in case we want to use the popped element somewhere below in the code. So let's say that we want to pop now the second element of the list. We can do, like, we assign to a variable c equals a dot pop, and then we pass the index 1. So now we see that c contains the number 11 and a does not contain the number 11, which has been popped from the list. A very common operation we do on the list is using the append method. The append method will append an element at the end of the list, and it operates in place. So we can do like this. Let's say a dot append and then 88. We see that now in the last position of the list we have the number 88, which has been appended to the list. Another useful method is the insert method. The insert method allows us to insert an element wherever we want in the list. So we have to specify the index at which we want to insert the element. So let's say we want to insert an element in the third position of the list. We simply do a dot insert the index, which is 2, and then the element, which will be 77. We see that we have inserted the 77 element in the third position of the list. Also, this method, like append, operates in place on the list. A very useful method which is built in the list instance is the sort method. So if it's possible to sort the list, like in this case, which has all integers, we can call the sort method. So a.sort, and now the list A will have sorted elements. So the sorting procedure is already implemented in the instance class. Let's say we have some heterogeneous data types inside the list. So for example, let's say A append cat. Now, if we try to sort again the list, it will throw a type error because the comparison is not supported between instances of string and integer. So we have to be careful when we are sorting a list which kind of data type it contains. So I hope you enjoyed this basic introduction on the list in Python, and I hope to see you next time. Thank you.